Hello and welcome back to the Check with Joseki Tech. I am Jared Chase. I am responsible for marketing and customer strategy here at Joseki Tech, where we help brands connect marketing strategy, operations, and technology to unlock full funnel growth and return a positive CRM ROI. I am joined today by Adam Steadley, my co-host and founding partner of Joseki Tech. How's it going, Adam?
Going well. So we just got back from Klaviyo's conference, KBoss 2025 in Boston. It was a great event. It was our first time attending, and they did a lot of real big announcements on the product front I think are good to look at. We had some inspiring sessions. They had some real world brand stories and a lot of focus on AI. It's what everyone's talking about, and they are too. They're doing that both on their customer side as well as their marketing side.
All right, great. And I think for today's podcast, we'll unpack some of the biggest product announcements of the conference, and we'll spotlight one of our favorite sessions from the conference, which was called Always On Scaling Smarter Subscription Journeys with Klaviyo, which featured insights from some of the top subscription brands like ButcherBox, Dollar Shave Club, Universal Yums, and Stumptown Coffee Roasters. Before we do that, Adam, why don't you just dive into a little bit of a conference overview for us?
So the conference was right there in downtown Boston, probably about 1,000 attendees, so pretty well attended. The mix between Klaviyo employees, partners, and brands seemed to be, I'd say, 30% Klaviyo employees, 60% partners, and 10% brands. So it was mostly folks like us that were there to support the product. And they did a lot of focus on helping to make sure we all knew how to use the new features and how they were going to be important for our customers to really activate on those.
Yeah, excellent. And I thought the conversations went pretty deep in terms of the new marketing technology and tools, which to me felt like a bit of an expansion for Klaviyo, right? Not just talking about email marketing and campaign performance, but really starting to look at the full customer journey and experience, looking to tie together how marketing service and data all work together to deliver meaningful engagement for customers.
Yeah, I did think they're really picking their eyes up and thinking more on the big side of mid market and enterprise more than just the little players they've historically been known for. And I think we see that in some of the offerings they're doing, sort of the size and scope.
All right, great. So as we dive into some of the features that were shared at the Klaviyo conference, they introduced this concept of an agent framework, right? And they released two different agents. And we'll get into those two agents specifically, but really this is a suite of tools designed to help plan, create, and optimize marketing campaigns for customers, but as well as to support their customer service efforts as well. Let's dive into the marketing agent as a first pass, Adam.
Yeah, so the marketing agent was pretty interesting. They were, touting it as the savior for mankind, of course. So I don't know if it's going to do all that, but it does quite a bit. When you set it up, you really just point it at your website, and then it's going to walk your website and it's going to pull what it thinks is your logo, what are your fonts, what are your colors. And then it also, which you then approve or not, then it starts building and suggesting emails for you. So it's going to take pages of your content and build out an email. So we tried this pointing at josekitech.com, and it does a reasonable job. Like, it gets you a decent email with some good points in it that you could then just click next, next, next and ship out a campaign. So that, I think, is a real big step. And I think a lot of the Klaviyo customers really have a hard time getting over that even simple barrier to be generating emails with new content regularly. So that, I think, is a positive feature. What I do think it will highlight is if your content on your website isn't good, then the content in your generated emails isn't going to be good. So I think that cycle is positive for us because it really is important for customers to spend all their dollars in the most productive way, and really coming up with what those messages are and getting them into any format should be the biggest hurdle. From there, it should be as mechanical as possible. And I think Marketing Agent is really going to let things become much more mechanical from there forward.
Yeah, yeah, I like that comment relative to, the AI agent's only as good as the content that you feed it, right? Sort of the old concept of garbage in, garbage out. definitely plays true there. But if you feed it with good content, it does provide some good ideas. And I think that, the key phase, I heard a couple of times at the conference folks discussing, okay, well, my copywriters might not be happy about this, right? And I think that based on our exploration of the marketing agent feature, I think it helps teams move faster without sacrificing quality and control. The reality is that a human still needs to review and approve everything. And where I think it helps the most is really with concept ideation. For me, I'm thinking things like blog posts, content-driven campaign, and flow recommendations can be really, really valuable to help spurn ideas, and oftentimes might be just enough to get a customer to act on a campaign recommendation and develop and test something new. We've all been exploring AI tools and figuring out how to leverage AI to support us in our regular work lives. And this is another feature specifically tailored for the Klaviyo platform, specifically tailored for CRM campaigns. And it has significant potential to cut the time between kind of idea and program launch. So it'll be interesting to see how, our clients explore Marketing Agent and start leveraging some of the technology and start really kind of building, I think, the concepts of flows and the structure of flows and or campaigns. And then there's always going to be some tweaking and optimization on top of it before it's ready to go. So I don't think it's a tool where you can press play just yet, but it absolutely is a tool that's going to help with program ideation and campaign launches.
Yeah, the other thing that I think
Yep.
is significant, they had some conversations with their tech leads, and they're all in on the AI stuff. And I think the pace of progress that they're going to make is going to be impressive. They were touting they deployed over 200 features last year. And I think with a baseline out there for Marketing Agent, there's going to be very quick progression to seeing new features and improvements and improvements. So, the ball is starting to roll downhill, and it's just, you just got to keep up with it at this point.
Yeah, agree. It is interesting to see, right, as you regularly log into Klaviyo. I think Klaviyo does a good job with kind of posting those features to you, and you're regularly seeing updates and new things to be checking out within the platform. Yeah, the dev velocity does seem to be impressive and exciting. Let's move on to Customer Agent. Adam, do you want to provide a high-level
Yeah.
overview of
So,
Customer Agent?
Customer Agent is there to sit, between your customers and your support staff to really answer that first line of questions about, what questions about product, questions about order, um, processing returns, all those sort of basic things, and then allowing you to hand that off to a human rep. So this is something that we've seen introduced at higher levels and more specific offerings by other firms, but having it built into the rest of your platform, I think has got a lot of value. Right? A lot of the value we see with Klaviyo is, especially with its tight integration with whether it's Shopify or Woo, like it's got all the data right there at one time. So it lets you do more valuable marketing with all that data. So this is keeping that stuff there in house a little bit better. I did think it was, when I looked at what they offered there, it really had me interested in all the customer hub features they were talking about, which also seemed pretty big.
Yeah, the customer hub offering seems pretty interesting. So the customer hub is effectively a portal or section of your website that gives shoppers a single and seamless place to manage their orders. You can pipe in your loyalty data so customers can look at their customer hub on your website and see how many points that they might have. They can check the status of, where is my order? Is it shipped? What's my shipping confirmation number? And then the customer hub also handles returns. And they do it in a clever way where it's embedded directly within a brand's website versus having to jump around to multiple different kind of portals or parts of the website. It's all in one succinct place that I'm looking forward to exploring further with some of our clients. Another important kind of option of the customer hub is it does give you the opportunity to provide some product recommendations and cross-sell opportunities. So it's not just a service portal, it can also be leveraged as a revenue generation tool as well. So the fact that it's all kind of on your website, there's no third-party jump to a different shipping site. I think Klaviyo is onto something here, and it'll be interesting to see how this tool evolves.
Yeah, it was in aggregate, I think it was very positive for the whole day and the 2-day sessions. The I think they're taking where they had been pitching KDP, where Klaviyo is really your CDP with all the activation channels on top of
Hmm.
it. And they're now building on that to try to be AI on top of the CDP. As we all know, the AI stuff works best if you've got all the data in one place at one time. So it wasn't a huge logical leap for them to say, hey, we have all this data. Let's just point the AI tools at it and get in the game. So it really feels like
Yeah.
they got in the game.
Yeah. And back to the previous point, right? That I think you made was, we've really watched Klaviyo kind of turn from an email marketing tool, right, to really a CRM platform that can do a lot more. All right, well, let's move on to a session spotlight. So both Adam and I attended the session called Always On Scaling Smarter Subscription Journeys. And this one stood out. This ran on Friday and was led by Klaviyo Chief Customer Officer Emily McElvey. Evely, I'm going to get some names here wrong here, so apologies. And had panelists Anna Elise Schwabacher from Dollar Shave Club, Michael Kumlin from ButcherBox, Ashley Muser from Stumptown, and Emily Tarvin from Universal Yums. Tell us a little bit about that theme of that session, Adam.
Yeah. So all the subscription players have a really hard time because they really have to take their recurring relationship and turn that into recurring revenue. So they did a real good job of diving into for subscription brands, how they're using Klaviyo at all their different touch points through the customer journey to really reinforce this.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I took one big takeaway I think it was from Mike at ButcherBox, where they're really trying to evolve from a traditional loyalty points program to providing their customers and their brand loyalists with something, more than points, right? I think Mike acknowledged during the session that, hey, points are important. Rewarding the customer for, their patronage is important. But they're going a step further and really connecting with their community by offering things like cooking classes. They're doing live Q&A sessions with some of their founders. They're finding different partnership opportunities with similar like-minded brands like Caraway and Graza. And so this point stuck to me because I think ButcherBox is doing something not necessarily unique here, but it feels like they're really trying to drive towards education and shared values and not just discounts with their customers, which to me is just a great way to build relationships that go deeper than product and price. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, that was echoed the notion that points are kind of passe at this point. And that's more of if people are watching the dollars and cents, you're going to lose them in these cases where you really need to form that emotional bond with your customer. And the that notion was to me one that we kept hearing over and over. And to me, it felt like you need to do the hard thing, right? The hard thing is not say, hey, 10% off our product if you buy now, but educate them, make them feel some emotion toward your product so that they're going to be stuck to you. So that is something I think we heard over and over. Um, in that same notion, one of the things that Mike was suggesting, which seemed like a really clever idea, he's got all his customer support issue data there. So let's pause all our marketing to try to let's stop reselling people while they're having a support issue and kind of change the tone of the conversation in that little window so we can be a little bit more effective.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And I think too, to your point about, connecting with customers on a deeper level, right? It's not just about rewarding customers with value, right? Like you connect with them on an emotional level and it really turns your customers into brand advocates, right? And anyone who's studied NPS in the past knows how important that is. All right, moving on to a couple of comments that were shared between the Dollar Shave Club and Stumptown brands. Both Anna Elise and Ashley talked about, being authentic for their customers and using storytelling and brand values to strengthen relationships. I forget specifically who shared what example, but they noted that they're really ramping up a couple of tactics, like personalized thank you notes in deliveries, in addition to surprise gifts in deliveries, to go a long way to really kind of surprise and delight their customer base and keep them engaged. And I think that this is an interesting opportunity that brands, I think, can take advantage of. Sometimes there's extra product laying around, right? Like, what are you going to do with that product? Well, if it doesn't cost you too much, right? And you can identify the customers that are valuable to you, and surprise and delight a customer with an extra gift. It's worth exploring and executing to connect with customers on a more personal level. So I thought that was interesting. Adam, back over to you. I think Universal Yums had a growth playbook that they shared.
Yeah. So Emily was sharing some of their growth playbook thoughts, and they really focus on three main levers to drive their lifetime value. They're looking at getting people to buy bigger boxes, extending their subscription terms, and especially in Q4, they look for gifting. So they time each of these with behavioral data from Klaviyo. So they're being real good about soft, customer friendly upselling that feels natural in the process and is not just so forced.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think she also made mention that, she has different frequencies or subscription models for their customers. So some customers may get a monthly box, some customers may get a quarterly box. And she talked about the importance of segmenting customer communications based on those products and the frequency within which they're getting their box in the mail, to ensure that messages remain helpful rather than repetitive in the inbox. And that might be a pretty straightforward, like in some circles, that might be a straightforward recommendation or segmentation strategy. But again, just reinforces the importance of smart approaches and onboarding and retention.
Yeah, I thought that was a good note. We don't normally work with subscription customers, but yeah, if someone signed up for a monthly versus a quarterly, then my welcome onboarding series should adjust accordingly, right? To know when they're getting their first box, when they're getting their second box, and have those touches be kind of rightly timed. The other notion that they brought up that I thought was interesting as well was trying to understand how big the household was so they can right size things, right? If they're not, for Dollar Shave Club, you're buying razors. If there's one person using razors, there's kind of a limit to how many you're going to go. So I'm sure they're trying to avoid the problem where you've got product stacked up around your house, so then you cancel and never come back. So they got to be careful about not overselling the real demand there. I thought that was pretty interesting point.
Yeah, I think that is interesting.
Uh,
A couple other highlights. I think I have one or two more. I thought it was interesting to kind of hear a little bit about the channel differentiation and how customers are using Klaviyo to really execute multi-channel marketing. Universal Mums has a Klaviyo integration with Zendesk, where they're replying very quickly to customers through SMS. I think that just is another kind of integration feature and speaks to some of the Klaviyo strengths in terms of platform integrations on that front. And then some more straightforward things like using predictive analytics to decide which channel should be leveraged. Should I send this customer an email or an SMS? What does the customer prefer? What channel has the highest likelihood of engagement and conversion? And just so a couple more examples, I think, of omni-channel communications being done well within the platform. I think the last one I'll share is that the concept of Klaviyo's kind of branded espresso shot segment was circulated a bit. And this is really more of a tactic than the overall kind of program strategy, but to really engage customers who are engaging with your programs and to follow up with them quickly if they haven't made a purchase, right? And so there were a number of brands kind of mumbling amongst themselves relative to the performance of the performance that they've seen against the espresso shot segmentation strategy. And again, it's simply to say, I sent an email out, this many people clicked on the campaign and showed some interest, but of those that did not purchase, let's follow up a few days later and remind them that they were interested in whatever they were interested in to try and get that sale closed. So another just example of segmentation strategy, that's simple to configure, but quite powerful from a performance standpoint.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of, oh yeah, espresso shot, that's the best. You got to do that.
Yeah.
There seemed to be around the board sort of excitement about that. And it's a perfectly simple concept and easy to execute on. So it kind of feels like a why not sort of game.
Yeah, test it.
Yeah, so the panel wrapped up with a reminder from Mike from ButcherBox that loyalty comes from listening. So their team is out there surveying their customers and using that to help guide where they put their partnerships and their benefits, and making sure that the program really reflects what their members really care about.
Yeah. I think that sums up, kind of what we saw across the conference. The themes being technology and data are essential, and we continue to see, advancements around those areas. But I think, kind of this session really drove home the idea that brands are seeing the best results are the ones that are using these tools to deepen human connection and not just try and sell. That's our job. That's what we're doing, but we're looking to get the right customers and target them relevantly and support them in their lives. And so, I think the human connection remains critically important to DTC and subscription brands.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a subscription or a DTC brand, the two big takeaways out of the conference. One, you got to keep your nose in the AI tools. Look at the marketing and customer agents and see how they can reduce some of that repeatable mechanical work your team's doing so they can really use their time to focus on creativity, storytelling, strategy, like the real think work.
Yeah, makes sense. And then, I think another point is really just continue looking for ways to make your customer journey more personal and more human. And some of the features like Customer Hub and advanced segmentation can really help deliver, the thing we've been saying forever: right place, right message, right time, right? Identifying those key moments of engagement and communicating them appropriately will keep customers coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. So the tools are getting powerful, but the goals are still the same old ones they've always been. We got to connect authentically, we got to communicate with relevance, and we got to build loyalty that lasts.
Yep, makes sense. All right, well, I think we're about ready to wrap up here. I think in summary, I think KBoss, we've mentioned this a bit, but I think KBoss demonstrated that Klaviyo is evolving from an email-only platform into a customer engine. They're combining AI and data and service to help brands grow sustainably and keep evolving, right? So it's nice to see them expand their offering here over the years.
Yeah, and that's really ties with where we focus in helping marketing teams really bring their capabilities to light in their ways that's strategic and measurable and true to their own brands.
Yeah. All right, great. Well, that will wrap up this edition of The Check with Joseki Tech. Thanks for listening. Keep an eye out for us across LinkedIn, where we'll have more content coming for you soon. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Take care.